Namaste, welcome to Satsang. It's really good to be back here. It feels like a long time since we're in this room. And welcome to you online as well. So Satsang is first and foremost, which I probably say every time, but it's worth hearing again and again, for the recognition of and also the living as and from the place of reality, what is real about us and what is eternal and stable. It's first that we come to see that, and then secondly that we come to live as that. So Satsang is for that directly. So what we're going to do, as always, is try to have a direct experience of that self that we really are as quick as possible tonight, just to kind of knock any ideas out of our heads that it's difficult or that it takes a long time, which I really struggled with myself. Whatever we believe powerfully with our conviction, with our infinite power, because we aren't really a separate being, we are the self already. Whatever we believe, we're going to experience. So if we're believing like I did that it's going to take a long time and it's going to involve a great sacrifice, and only a few beings do it in any lifetime, and all these other things that were rattling around my head. And because of that, I want to kind of knock that out of our paradigm completely. How can it be hard if it is what we are already? How can it be difficult? We were saying, before we began recording, we were saying that how it used to be was that there was one teacher in one place, one country, and if you wanted to wake up, you had to go live with that teacher, follow them around, be with them, all of that, or try to get enough information the 1 or 2 times that you met them. And that was one of the reasons why it was rare for people to wake up. Now, as we were saying, it's very, very different. You turn on YouTube and there's an infinite supply of wisdom. So it really is a different paradigm now. So we need to make the most of that. And to do that, I really want to do some meditation tonight, but to do it very differently, perhaps, than we've done it before. So I'm going to be mean and ask you to keep your eyes open. I know, for a little while at least. You know, you can drift off afterwards. And the same, if you're watching online, you can do this even though you're in a different room. It doesn't make any difference for the sake of the meditation. And we're going to come to meditation with a different attitude. You know, meditation for me became work, became a struggle, became the most boring 20 minutes of my entire existence, the longest 20 minutes of my existence. With occasional moments of feeling really, really good. So I want to knock that on its head and turn it upside down and see if we can approach it from a different place. So we're going to be noticing the formlessness, and we're going to also be noticing the forms. So all the forms are seemingly arising out of the formlessness. And just noticing that the way we usually come to meditation is from the mind's perspective of, I've got to pick one of those. I've got to pick form or formless. And of course, by this point, we're all going, formless, please. I want that. I don't want the other, you know, specifically the forms of thoughts, subtle forms of thoughts. So let's come to our meditation here now with this kind of open curiosity. Let's see, in any moment, our attention is either going to be on the formlessness or on a form, either a gross tangible form like my body or this table or this laptop or the furniture in the room that you're sitting watching this in, or a subtle object like an emotion arising in the body, some thoughts, confusion, I don't get what she's talking about, something, you know, whatever mind is doing. So our only choice is whether we're focused on form or formless. And I want you to try and play with an attitude of just Whichever one of those I'm looking at is fine. I'm not going to struggle in this meditation at all. So eyes open, at least for now. And we can start embracing form by recognizing, embracing the either orness rather than trying to choose one, by recognizing without these forms, we wouldn't be able to recognize the formlessness. So without my hand, I can't recognize that there's empty space around it. It would be really hard for me to see the space that's always been here. So around your body right now, around any object in the room that you're sitting in, there is empty space, which really isn't actually empty space. It seems boring and dull at first because of the ideas we have about it. It's irrelevant, our mind says. It's just necessary space so that all this stuff can appear in it. But that's about all as far as the usefulness goes of this emptiness. Let's call it emptiness tonight. So there's forms and then there's emptiness. And you can't notice the form without the emptiness in between. They're beautifully contrasting, aren't they? They're beautifully contrasting and they're not in opposition. That's what I really want you to get. So whatever your attention is on now, if it's on the form, a form, great. You can say around that form, whether it's a subtle thought form or a gross tangible form, around it is the spacious emptiness. And you can do that with every single thing. If we look at this statue here, there's space around it, isn't there? Any object that you perceive, even if there's a thought going through my head, that thought is happening inside, appearing in some emptiness, isn't it? And the emptiness and the thought are not in conflict with each other if you really kind of look at that. They're not, there's nothing there that's trying to get rid of one or the other, which is what we so desperately try to do in our meditation. Formlessness, emptiness is the right thing, and my thought forms should just go away, they should fly away. But what if they're there to contrast beautifully? How could you see the space in which this room is appearing without the room itself here? Would you even notice it? Would you be able to? Or is there a beautiful contrasting dance going on between the emptiness and the way that it's showing up? There's this body, this body, this body, everything that we have in this room, everything in every room for everyone that's ever going to watch this, what is watching this now. Everywhere, basically. Everywhere there's an object, there's emptiness around it, everywhere. The other side of the universe, the furthest reaches of the furthest planet that we could go to, if that was possible somehow, it would still be the same, wouldn't it? If we went back 1,000 years or went forward 1,000 years, it would still be that. The objects would have changed what they are, but the same basic thing would be that there is objects and there's this emptiness around them. So we're just going to practice for a few minutes, noticing whatever our attention falls upon, and noticing the emptiness around it, the not a thing yetness that this is, that seems at first boring, it seems irrelevant, it seems dull, necessary only. And if your attention gets caught up in a subtle form of thoughts, we're not going to try hard at all. Just the moment you sort of recognize that you're zoomed into thoughts, you're paying attention to thoughts, see if you can notice the space around the thoughts in which it's appearing, or the emotion. If there's an emotion moving, if you're feeling restless, if you're feeling confused, if you're feeling blissful, if that feeling is there, can you notice that it's appearing in some kind of background context, isn't it? Emptiness. All of our bodies are too. And what if meditation then became a beautiful noticing of the formlessness, and then a curiosity as to how it's appearing as form? Oh, look, it's showing up as this thought. oh, look, it's showing up as this emotion. It's showing up as this experience. It's showing up as this person. And it's showing up as my thoughts about this person, positive or negative. It's also showing up as nothing, nothing. And whenever I'm focused on forms, I can remember that there's formlessness, emptiness around it. And whenever I'm focused on the emptiness, it gives me beautiful contrast for the objects, the things appearing inside it. And meditation then becomes something that's not a struggle. It should be something we can just, okay, am I focused on nothing or something? And whatever you're focused on, you're focused on. It's just very, very relaxed. We can't even really call it meditation because it's just kind of sitting here enjoying. There's no struggle. This idea that we've got to get rid of one or the other comes from the basic idea in our mind that they're two different things. They look different. You know, this microphone looks different to the emptiness around it, completely different, doesn't it? They look like opposites. But if we just rest attention wherever it is, noticing the spacious emptiness as well. And you can close your eyes if you want to now. Don't have to, but if you're closing your eyes, noticing the blank emptiness that first appears when you close your eyes before any thought appears in it. And at some point, some thought is going to pop in there. I'm doing really well with this emptiness thing, mind will say, you know, or something really helpful. Just noticing again in our inner world, same thing. Emptiness, nothingness, and then an emotion or a thought or an experience. And your body is just hanging out in the emptiness, the chair that you're sitting on. And I'd really like you to just take the struggle out of this. Take the struggle out of it. For the rest of your life and beyond, physical life, you're going to be either noticing form or formlessness, emptiness. That's all that's ever going to change, isn't it? What those forms are going to constantly change. Your scenery is going to change. The basic experience we're going to have is going to continue. Whether our eyes are closed in a formal meditation or open in a kind of more ongoing meditation as it ends up. And that really is the natural state of a human being. Gradually, attention comes to rest on the formlessness more, emptiness more, not by effort, not by getting rid of the other stuff. Have you noticed how you can't get rid of that, right? You try to push it away, it's kind of, you know. Not that I didn't try, and we don't all try to do that for a very long time. And there's nothing wrong with thoughts if we use them in this beautiful way to contrast. Without this thought moving through my awareness, I wouldn't be able to see the awareness. I wouldn't notice it's there. And then I can notice the awareness, whether it's full of something or empty. So just wherever your attention is, not fighting. Let's not fight in our meditation. Let's see if we can just chill out for a while. Whatever you're zoomed into, an object out here or in here. And everything that's not the emptiness is an object. Subtle or tangible. And then the objects take on this kind of just isness. They don't have any emotional charge so much anymore. Even our thoughts just become thoughts. They're just thoughts when we're not trying to get rid of them. So we're putting so much effort into pushing against something, then they just are thoughts. They're just things. They don't really get in the way. So just taking some time, noticing that if you stop fighting, that naturally you begin to feel less divided. Even though we haven't changed anything about our experience, you start to feel more whole and unified, relaxed. The body relaxes, and eventually even mind begins to slow down, because there's nobody fighting with it. There's nobody trying to pick a side. In reality, forms and formless are the same one, and that will just reveal itself to you. There is nothing to choose. As you're just resting here like this. It's not a very pleasing meditation for our mind, because we're not achieving anything or getting anywhere or getting some super duper level of consciousness or anything. It's just emptiness. Okay, that's boring. Okay. If you can just go with that, if something begins to slow down inside you, something that's desperately trying to sort through your experience and get the right thing and get rid of the wrong thing, something that's just kind of our egoic sense of self, our mind, that which believes in two, believes that they're different, it's trying to get rid of one and keep the other. That in itself makes us feel divided, because they're not really two, even though they seem to be form and formless. So wherever your attention is, just noticing it's either on a thought or a form, or it's on the spaciousness, the emptiness. If it's on a thought or a form, you can notice, zoom back out, notice the space it's appearing in. The more you just do this very simple thing, you can do it while you're walking around, while you're talking to someone. Your eyes can be looking at them directly, and you can be aware of the spaciousness, the emptiness around them. And then you'll be fully present with them. You'll be able to really engage with them completely. And it really becomes more a curiosity meditation. How much can I kind of relax into this? And where can I practice this? Can I do it in the supermarket? Can I do it while I'm at work? Can I do it while I'm with my kids? Does it have to be something I just do with my eyes closed when I sit down? It starts like that. But it feels so good that we want to do it more and more. And eventually it just becomes effortless and continuous. And it doesn't matter if our attention goes to thoughts after we finish this satsang tonight, and we're lost with our thoughts for 2 hours, 3 hours, and we completely forget the emptiness for 3 hours. Nothing's happened, has it really? Nothing. It's still here. Oh, I forgot again. And it just kind of, here it is. The emptiness is not bothered where your attention is. So see if we can just be a little bit like that. Naturally, you'll begin to just zoom out anyway. Like you might be listening to what I'm saying, but not really kind of paying attention, trying to do anything with the words. You're just kind of here and relaxed. And so isn't this a much more fun way to meditate than trying to achieve some state or goal, which, by the way, is completely unachievable, which you probably figured out, hence the reason you're here. It's enough to just meditate like this with your eyes closed or open when you're walking around if you want to, and it'll become more and more the way of being, the way of living. And you'll be caught up in a conversation, you'll be noticing the emptiness even while you're talking. It's like, wow, I didn't know I could do that, actually. Didn't realize it could be that easy. Just stopping trying to get rid of anything. It's not really our thoughts that are troubling us, it's our attempt to get rid of them that's disturbing us. When you really get that, meditation becomes effortless. And your attention is just going to go to form, formless, form, formless, 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 form, formless, 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 formless. That sounds really strange when you say it enough times quickly. And this is just what happened for me. Just naturally, I fell in love with not fighting anymore. Not fighting. I was tired of sorting through my experience and trying to get somewhere, you know, had enough of that. It didn't work anyway, you know, never did. And it doesn't matter if a whole day goes past before you remember to check out the emptiness. It doesn't matter, or a minute, or if your attention's constantly on it. You're only going to feel disturbed if you think that you should be looking at something else. If you're looking at thoughts, look at them. If you're looking at emptiness, look at it. And you cannot get this wrong then. This meditation cannot fail, which is really good news, you know. So see if you can move around like this after the satsang. See if you can, and during the satsang even, just stay with this. Whatever I'm looking at is whatever I'm looking at. But if I'm looking at a form, just with my eyes on it, I can notice the space around it. It's impossible to notice a form without it showing you the formlessness. It's always been here, hasn't it? We just kind of thought we had to pick one or the other. And I really got this inside. It was like, oh my goodness, I've made such hard work out of my awakening. Really hard work, you know. I was about to get rid of everything. I'm going to really, you know, get there. And I tried so hard to keep my attention only on the formlessness, you know, and I realized it was impossible. I came to realize that they are the same thing anyway. It really doesn't matter in the end, but until we get to that point, let's just not choose. While they seem to be two, let's just not choose, not prefer, not pick. Especially our thoughts. Like, let's get rid of these ideas that somehow they're in the way of our meditation. What if they're popping up to show you the stillness that they're moving in, the awareness that they're moving in? Same thing. And what happens when you start to look at them that way? Your relationship with your mind begins to change, that you're not pushing against it. What if that's the only thing that's keeping it noisy, actually? So we kind of morphed into a talk and a meditation and all sorts. Hopefully you've had an experience of some effortlessness that we didn't arrive at. We just kind of stopped fighting something, fighting this. Stop trying to choose. Peace is there. Peace will be there to the degree that we're not dividing ourselves. By the very idea that I've got to pick form or formless, we are dividing ourselves into two artificially, and it hurts. It hurts, doesn't it? So this is the quick way out of suffering. There might be some negative emotions, some negative thoughts, but if I just allow them to be there and show myself the spaciousness around them, I won't be able to contract around them. I won't be able to believe them. And if I'm still believing some thoughts, that's okay. I can notice those. See if I can just zoom out a little bit. Here's this thought in my mind. Can I just zoom out a little bit when it's there? Can I just pull back a little bit? And noticing the emptiness. Or some emotion, or some experience that I'd rather not be having in that moment. And the same with an experience I really would rather be having. Can I just zoom out a little bit so I don't grab it and try to keep it, which is the other side of that duality coin. I like this one. Let me kind of taking this home. We don't grab for peace or joy. It stays, I wish somebody had told me that 25 years before. So I will open it up for questions here in the room or online as well, but I must try to get through a couple of these questions that have been waiting a very long time that have been sent in. So I'll take two of these questions on that have come in, and then I'll ask for questions. And okay. Dearest Helen, this may be too much for Satsang, but I would love some insight and guidance. My elderly father, who I've written to you before about, took his life. My soul knows that it was perfect timing for his soul. I am blessed to have deeper insight, but my human needs more light to dissolve the guilt and pain it carries. It was a week ago now, and the pain obviously has been huge. Our hearts have been broken. Even though I know all is in order and that divinity decides what happens in this play of duality, the guilt that I didn't have enough light to dissolve his delusions plagues me, even though rationally I know we couldn't have done more. I feel that I could have. So even though rationally I know I couldn't have done more, I feel that I could have. Such guilt for feeling resentment at times, because it was almost as if he worked against us when we tried to help him. It was like a painful, unsolvable conundrum. He wouldn't tell doctors the full story, and if we tried, he'd deny that he was suicidal. When he was put on medication, he hated taking it and said that he wanted to stop. He was just a frightened little child in pain. Any insights would be greatly appreciated. Lots of love and appreciation. So maybe those feelings have settled down to some degree since you sent those in, because it was much more than a week ago now. But it's good that you're asking this kind of question, because it's something that we all feel, isn't it? And especially once we have some certain awareness of what we really are, our instinct, our impulse is to try to convey that to someone, especially someone who's in so much pain and suffering, someone who is in a very dark place inside their own being. But just looking at it from the sake of answering your question, guilt and resentment are the things that you've mentioned here. So guilt is coming from the idea that you didn't do enough, or you weren't enough, as you said here, this idea that you should have done more, you could have done more, and you should have tried harder, or some feeling, isn't it? Guilt is saying that you are, you've done something wrong, or you haven't done something right, something like that. But, you know, looking at it even now, hopefully you can see that what happened happened, and there was nothing that you could have done differently in that moment. Your actions are coming out of your energy field, just as, you know, your father's actions were too. And also to answer the resentment is coming from this sense that, you know, why won't he listen? You said here he wouldn't listen, and he wouldn't tell the full story to medical staff. But that comes from the feeling of guilt and resentment comes from the sense that when we ask someone or tell them something, that they are actually hearing us, you know, that they're actually really getting what we're saying. So if I say something to you that I really need you to hear, and you don't hear it, is it because I didn't communicate it clearly, or is it because something else is in the way of that? Even if we're communicating clearly straight from the emptiness, anybody that we're talking to, unless they're connected to, have realized their essential nature, is listening through their beliefs about themselves, their beliefs about everything, is literally diminishing what they can hear from us. So this idea that you could have or should have done something different, even if that was possible, and you said the magic words, it still wouldn't have been able to be absorbed completely inside. It helps to realize that everybody, when they believe they're a separate being, is hearing what they think we're saying, not what we're actually saying. And that's astonishing, isn't it, when you kind of get like, oh my goodness, like I've never had a real conversation with anyone actually until now. And if I have my beliefs about what's going on and they have their beliefs, then it's a wonder two human beings ever agree on anything, you know, actually. So what you did or did not do is not at fault, and you could not have done anything differently. And he could not, the resentment, you know, saying he should have listened more or something, but he couldn't do that either because he was listening through his beliefs. Perhaps his own belief that, you know, that he wasn't good enough, or on some unworthiness in that way that led to this. So I hope that helps to give some insight. The whole premise of guilt is that I've done something and I should have done it differently, or I've not done something. Is it really possible to have done anything different? These words are coming out now. Could they be any different than they are? And whatever you're thinking about what I'm saying or not thinking, could it be any different than what I'm saying, than what it is now? So I hope that one helps, and I hope you're feeling even slightly better by this point. Okay, dearest Helen, why do kids and individuals need boundaries when we are all the self in which is free and boundless? Do we need a bubble to grow until we are able to realize our true self with love and appreciation? Well, yeah, I mean, we've kind of got these bodies at first, and we haven't got a clue how to work them, have we? We don't know what we're doing with them. And it takes us a while there's no user manual that comes with this, you know. It'd be helpful if there was. So we usually need somebody who's been around in a body longer than we have to say, don't do that. It's not going to lead to a good result. But also emotional, psychological boundaries. We're learning that as well, aren't we? How to respect someone else and all of that. What's give and take, and that other people have needs to and wants to. That might not be immediately obvious to us as we start out in these bodies. And the self is boundless and free, as you've said here. But the body is in time and in a certain place, in a certain location. And it might take us a while to switch over to that. You know, how do I get in this tiny little thing and drive it? You know, I've just been in my everywhereness, and then suddenly I've got to get in this tiny little thing and try and make it work. So we need somebody who's kind of learned the boundaries and the limits and what's good and not good for the body to help us with that until we have. Again, hope that helps. Okay, so if you have any questions, anybody wants to ask anything, either online. Okay, Laurie, if is there anyone in the room as well wants to ask at the moment? Yeah, I'll come to you next then. So we'll go to Laurie first.
Hi, Helen.
Hi.
Okay, regarding what you were just speaking of, in our Zoom meeting yesterday, we had a very similar situation where a person was speaking and was just totally lost and just kept going on and on, making more and more stories and pulling more and more into it. So, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. And so I understand what you're saying is probably nothing that I could have said that he could have heard. But what could I do? Is there anything that what can I do in that situation?
That's can you still hear me okay? Because your picture's
Yes.
Yep, good. In that situation, if you can see someone spiraling downwards, you know, they get on a certain energy, a certain story, and then it just kind of goes downwards from there, doesn't it? It kind of if you can stay in the energy field of realizing that they can't hear you, that the dominant voice in their head, it is the voice in their head, you know, that they are to a certain extent. I think we might have lost. Are you still there? Yeah.
I can hear you.
Yeah, thanks. If you can stay in that place of understanding that this person couldn't, that there's nothing you can do in that moment to reach that person. You probably got a sense of that yesterday, as you were saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just that recognition, there's nothing I can do here, means that your energy field becomes effortless. You're not pushing against this person or pulling, trying to change their experience. And as you stop trying to change of course you would still like them to feel better, but as you stop trying to change their experience at all. So I might have the desire for this person to feel better, but I know there's nothing I can do about it in that moment. Then their situation has to change in that. Something has to begin to shift in that. We quite often are trying to change their experience from a very noble place of, I really want them to feel better. You know, I want them to come out of this story or whatever's going on for them. But if we can recognize by this point where you are now, that's not helping so much. You know, just to recognize, I'm going to let them have the experience that they're having. Yes, I would like it to be different, but I'm going to honor how reality is showing up for them in this moment. Doesn't mean we don't care or don't want something better for them. It's just how we're going about getting it is different. Does that help you?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much.
It's really just a switch of how we're helping now, isn't it? Yeah, you still might say some words out of your mouth, but inside there's no struggle. You're not trying to change what they're experiencing.
Right. Just basically holding the space.
Exactly. Yeah, you said it much better than me. Thank you. Lovely.
Thank you so much.
So we'll take this question in the room and then we'll come to the two hands online. So whenever I'll try to alternate. Don't worry.
Okay, I suppose first of all, I just want to really thank you for your teachings. And
Could I just ask you to speak up a little?
yeah,
can,
sure.
thanks.
That yeah, I've been listening to a lot of your teachings on YouTube over the last kind of 2 months, and have really helped me to rest more in the formless, the emptiness,
Good.
And at the same time be aware of form.
Yeah.
And so yeah,
as we were just doing earlier on.
Yeah, so that's really kind of resonating with me now.
And can you feel a struggle kind of dropping away a bit more each day?
I've noticed my mind being so much more quiet.
Good.
Really, just a couple of weeks ago, I thought, whoa,
Yeah.
the mind is so much more quiet. And I
but you're not trying to get it like that then, are you? Because you're just kind of enjoying your experience more.
And I think that's the thing, a real sense of enjoyment.
Yeah.
And almost like more waking up to the beauty of things, the joy in that.
We've been so fixated, especially on the pathway, trying to change our experience, trying to get rid of something, that effort just kind of clouds the beauty that's around us and the wonderful isness of all this.
Yeah, and I think my practice for quite a long time was kind of come through a mindfulness route, and there's the invitation at first to focus your attention on something.
Yeah.
And actually it feels so much more, and I appreciate that can help if you have, say, a really, really busy mind.
It's where we start from, is it some mantra or some object that we're focusing on in a meditation?
Yeah, like the breath or something.
Exactly, yeah.
But actually, I spent many kind of years on that, and also was teaching that as a meditation technique. But then to really kind of almost step back, and I was listening to your talks on zooming out and the field, and yeah, it just feels a lot less effortless and more joyful. So my question for you, and maybe I'm jumping the gun a little, is I know kind of intellectually and getting a sense that everything is emptiness. Yeah. And I'd be really interested to hear of your experience, and maybe of what happened when you maybe became embodied, when you really felt that everything was the same, everything was emptiness, and also if there was anything that you did in particular that led you to that knowing.
What's the cheat here? Where's the cheat? Well, first bit, it's just kind of everything. So the first bit, are you asking what it's actually like, what the experience of that is like, or?
Yes, I think my question was, at what point when you noticed that, when you had that realization that, wow.
It actually happened backwards. It's going to sound really strange, but I realized after the event that certain people that I was looking at, interacting with, certain emotions that were coming up, that I wasn't pushing against them at all. And I wasn't having any thoughts about, certain beings. We have our favorite thoughts about certain beings, good, bad, and ugly thoughts, about, and they just weren't there anymore. And I really got curious as to why, like you were saying, mind was going quieter. Why is that happening, actually? And it's because if I see you as you, a separate being, there's me here and you there, it really makes sense to think about you. Like, do you like me? And are you understanding what I'm saying? And am I being effective? And all of that comes into play. And if I don't like you, I'm going to have even more thoughts about you. And, what are you thinking about me? And so as the mind's going quiet, it's actually because there is some recognition that maybe hasn't hit here, but that you're not any different to me. You are the emptiness. I am the emptiness. The bodies both are emptiness. So there's no point in thinking about you, because you can't really think about the emptiness, can you? What can you really think about it?
Just is.
There's nothing your mind can do with it, right? And I started to realize this is what was happening. My eyes were still looking at the same objects and the same internal objects. But there was no commentary, less and less commentary. It was falling away. And it's only afterwards I realized that same person said that same thing that would have pushed that same button, and there was just nothing. Like, oh, okay, that's your perspective on it, nothing to do with me. And I got really curious, kind of leading into the second bit. Why is that happening? And it's like, my eyes can look at anything. And if I start to think about it, that whatever I'm seeing, then my mind is going to engage and I'll feel like a separate being, because there's something to think about or someone to think about outside of me. There's suddenly an imaginary barrier somewhere between where you're sitting and where I'm sitting. And the whole world of separation comes back into play there, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I realized the moment, if my mind was active, I could just shift to noticing that they are empty, or asking the question, what really is this body, or this person, or this emotion, or this experience? What really is it? And he went right back to the silence, the emptiness with that question. Visually now, still everything looks the same as it would for you right now. There's no difference in what I'm seeing with my eyes or hearing with my senses and all of that. But there's no need to think about it if it doesn't exist the way my mind says. You don't exist outside of me, separate to me. So there's really no point thinking about you, because I'm thinking about someone who doesn't exist. When mind really gets that, you go, oh, it's a bit pointless then, all this what ifness that, and should and shouldn't and all of that stuff. And it kind of really sped up from there then, where I was still thinking about things and people. It's like, but they're not really there. It's really emptiness. I've been imagining this whole world of beings inside my consciousness that really aren't there, separate to me at least. They are my own self, and they are the emptiness. And what could I could think about them forever and it wouldn't make any difference. I still wouldn't know them. There's this sudden appetite to know them. Like, I want to know you rather than think about you. If I think about you, I'll feel separate to you.
And if you know me,
I won't think about you.
How does that feel to know somebody, something?
How does it feel when you notice the emptiness?
Is it the same as the, right?
Same as everything. And then wherever your eyes or your ears or your nose or your tongue touches, it's just experienced like with the same feeling inside, the same equanimity as your deepest meditation. It doesn't make any difference then whether your eyes are open or closed, whether we're having an argument. They're still the same. It's almost like, wow, this is fun. We can pretend that there's a difference between us. Because your body looks different to my body. You sound different. And somehow we've pulled off this convincing illusion that we are different. And then it's quite, wow, that's really curious. How does that? And it's doing it here, and it's doing it here, and it's doing it here, and this emotion, and this. It's a kind of like an awe about it then.
And I kind of wanted to say a fun, this joy to it, but kind of coming to realize that, wow, it's about experiences, being given this opportunity to experience.
And experiencing reality, conscious of what you are, is totally different. Totally different from the suffering of a separate being. And you can't wait to have at it then. You know, you might find yourself leaping out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning, actually excited about the day like we used to be as kids, that kind of feeling. Does that help? Does that answer?
It does. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank
Good.
you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to Cheryl.
Hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good. With the last person that you were just talking to, or somebody, I think maybe she said everything is emptiness, and you were talking about recognizing that everything is emptiness. And I find that confusing. I have heard from other Advaita teachers that everything is a dream, the world is a dream. And one night I even had a dream that kind of pointed towards that, which seemed kind of amazing. But then this week I was talking to somebody, an acquaintance, who she's an invited person, and we were talking about the dreadful things that are happening in Afghanistan, and it was just so upsetting, and I was really feeling for the people. And I said jokingly, duality is crazy. And then she said, yeah, but it's fun. And I just thought, oh my God, like that sounds so callous. It's so confusing, because maybe everything is a dream, but isn't the suffering that the people are experiencing, isn't that real? I mean, how can you say that that's
Everyone is suffering from what they're believing to be true. So everybody thinks that they're suffering because of what's happening to them. But in reality, we're only ever affected by our thoughts about what's occurring. And that suffering that comes from that experience is extraordinarily real, absolutely real. And because really, in reality, we are the infinite self, the one being, we have infinite power behind believing those thoughts. So we infinitely experience it as very, very real over and over again. And we get very caught in experiencing our ideas about what reality is, what life is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the suffering becomes extraordinarily real, because not only is the person trapped in their thoughts, experiencing them over and over again, they don't know they're stuck in their thoughts. So there is no way out at that point for them. There's just a very slow, gradual process of their thoughts over lifetimes becoming more and more of a spiritual nature, and then eventually finding themselves in a satsang like this. That's a very slow process that takes however long it takes in terms of imagined lifetime separate beings. But from the perspective of the separate being, it is very, very real, yes. And I want to say something about duality and non-duality that hopefully might clear it up. It's not, or at least shed some light on it. My idea used to be that I have to get rid of duality and only focus on non-duality. You know, where I know that everything is me, everything is emptiness, as you were saying, and all of that. But true non-duality means not two. So if I'm pushing something away out of my experience, duality should just go away because it's bad or you know, unwanted. Then really I'm still in duality because I'm separating this bit I want, this bit I don't want. Are you with me so far there?
Yeah.
So true non-duality is where I can see that everything is the emptiness, as we were just saying before, but I can also completely understand and have compassion for someone who really feels they're a separate being, is absolutely convinced of that, and perhaps maybe many lifetimes away from coming out of that. You know, so there it's not that suddenly the world is a dream in that way. Okay, you know, I'm not going to say to someone who's suffering from their thoughts, this isn't real, just snap out of it, because for them it's extraordinarily real, isn't it? And that's where the kind of compassion kicks in, because you remember also what it was like when you were believing your thoughts, when you were caught in that, and there seemed no way out because you kept experiencing those thoughts over and over again, you know, sort of going around the cycle. So
Okay.
kind of recognizing that non-duality includes duality. It must do if it's really not two. It must be inclusive of whichever way we see the world, whether we've seen that we're infinite and everywhere, or whether we still feel that we are separate and someone somewhere. They are both as valid to an awakened being. One is going to involve much less suffering, or eventually no suffering. The other is going to include a lot of suffering. But there's nothing in you then that can say one is right or wrong in that place. Does that help?
Okay. Yeah, it does. But is it okay if you are awakened and you see that everything is emptiness, then could you find yourself in a situation like in Afghanistan and, you know, being tortured or whatever? And I mean,
even if you were, I mean, there have been accounts of people that suffered in, you know, the concentration camps, things like that. Whatever was happening to their body, their mind was quiet. Because, and there's no, even if there was some thoughts going on, there'd be no way to reject that either in that moment. So whatever's happening to our body is what's happening to our body. And of course, we would like to treat the body better. We'd like it to continue, but we respect it and all of that. We try to keep it safe. But there's a clearer recognition in that seeing that when it's gone, I'm not gone. And that if somebody's doing something to my body, they can't be doing anything to me. And that energy field of realizing that the other person is you makes it very, very hard for anyone to do or say anything negative around you or anything that's less than loving. They might start off that way, but after a very short space of time, it will change how they are.
So the other person, as in the torturer.
Yeah, your energy field, when you're undivided, when you're not trying to reject anything in your experience, you're also not trying to reject this person in front of you who's still believing in separation, is very gently overriding and influencing everyone else's. And we can feel that when we're around an awakened being. We just feel, you know, lifted up, don't we, somehow?
Yes.
So
yeah,
it's not a forceful, it's not like an awakened being's field is kind of overriding in that forceful way. It's just, here's a deeper place we can experience from. And that's happening all the time. In a very simple way. You know, if I go to the supermarket and somebody is feeling really, really sad, you know, or having a hard day, I might just chat with them while I'm getting my stuff, and they're smiling and they're feeling better by the time you leave, you know. So it's happening all the time in a very normal way, as well as a different way. So it's also impacting the whole world. Our conscious presence is impacting like that.
I love that.
It means that right now in this conversation that you and I are having, we are making a difference. And it's that much harder, a tiny, tiny bit harder each time we do this, for someone to treat another person in a way that's less than loving. And if enough beings do that, then something wonderful is going to shift. There's a lot of beings that want the world to change, but they're all trying to achieve that from the energy field of separation. What happens when we do that from a unified place of oneness? Something very powerful happens then.
Well, that's wonderful. There was something else I thought of when you were talking, but it's gone. So
we'll save it for next time. We have a couple of hands waiting here as well.
Okay.
So thank you.
All right. Thank
you.
you.
Good to talk to you. Okay. We'll go to Shyster. Is there any more questions in the room? Yep. Okay. We'll take these two hands that are up then online, and then we'll call it a day, bring it to an end. Call it a night, evening, whatever time it is. Shyster, whenever you're ready.
Hello, hi, yes.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. You okay?
Yes, good.
Good
I
to
came
see you.
after a long time, yes. I was just, traveling and just too busy. But anyhow, today I had an amazing day, and this satsang of the meditation was just so beautiful, so beautiful. I guess my question, pretty much, you've answered whatever we've been talking about and all. But I have just a little thing which I need to clarify a little. So this the very intense emotion and feelings. So there are so there are 2-3 things around it. I don't know, I've heard you saying that, and as well as perhaps somebody else, I don't know, but in my mind, it's like the emotions. So just now you just said that you noticed when you sort of became realized that the emotions were not there, or the feelings did not come as before, of judgment or of something else, with regards to other people, which you used to have before. And the other thing about emotions and feelings is, so there are 2 things that, I mean, in my mind. So there's one is like, you question your emotion, or you not question, you question your thoughts. So if the emotions and feelings are there, how to, and they're intense and negative, I'm talking about here now more. I'm not saying how to get rid of them, but I guess I don't know how to formulate a question. As in, some people say that, like you said, that they started to vanish. So that was a sign that you are you are awakened. Or, and the other, some people say, okay, the emotions and feelings are there, but they're not disturbing you, or just use them to use as a stepping stone to go forward. And also, like, the question is, because for the past many days, weeks, I had extremely intense emotions and extremely intense peace.
Yeah.
But I was like switching from here to there. Like today also, I started questioning my thought, and I was just asking myself questions. I was walking around and meditating, so to speak, myself, following perhaps some techniques, some not, my own way. And I was completely in a state of bliss, and it's beautiful and stuff. And all the negative emotions just vanished. And I was not trying to get rid of them, but so I guess I'm asking that, what's the role of emotion in our life then? And would not experience after that at all?
Emotion is, negative emotion at least, is telling us that we're still believing a certain thought. So a certain story, like we've spoken about before. Fear is telling us that we don't feel safe. Anger is telling us that we don't feel we can get what we want. And so the emotion, the role, of the emotion is to show us that we're still buying some story about ourselves or life or someone else. And once we have questioned that, then the emotion begins to dissipate, begins to diminish in that. Even before that, you'll experience, like you have done today, I think you said, where it was just there, this emotion. It might have been intense, but there wasn't any pushing against it. So you can then, you begin to experience the emotion and peace at the same time. That the emotion is just happening inside the spaciousness, and there's a sense of peace when I'm not fighting with that. Because
Yes.
my first and foremost experience is peace. It doesn't matter so much if some negative emotion is happening. We've moved then from this idea that I've got to get rid of this emotion before I can feel peace, which is actually what's disturbing us. I've got to get rid of this fear before I can get back to peace. Is actually causing the disturbance inside. So there's just peace and emptiness, and then whatever is showing up in that, it might be this emotion, or it might be bliss if we're not pushing against anything. And there's just a more relaxed way inside. You probably experience that. It's kind of, this emotion needs to be felt, but you can't experience it like that for very long before it transmutes into some higher frequency, begins to lift, begins to lighten. It doesn't feel quite as intense, and then it's not quite as strong, and then it's just a kind of a shadow of what it was, and then it just feels peaceful. There's just peace then. Yeah,
That's exactly happened like that. Totally. I was just with it. I was not pushing away, and I was not expecting anything, really, just questioning and in my own way. And it was just so beautiful. It's just everything shifted, changed experientially. I'm following your book also, the and your teaching and stuff. And today's meditation was just so beautiful. So thank you so much. Thanks a lot for everything.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Bye.
Good. Okay. Amy, did you want to ask a question? Or
Yeah, hi Helen. I know it's late. I'm sorry.
it's okay.
I just wanted to connect with you. Really, my internet's a bit unstable, so I won't put the video on. But
Okay.
and just say thank you and send my love. And it's like an intense time, as you know, on a lot of different levels, and I can see that it's deepening me into the stillness and also causality, just like there's moments of a new kind of fearlessness that you know that nothing exists, that I'm, you know, the painful things that are coming up aren't real. In a deeper way, there's like
That begins to break through sporadically, doesn't it? At first, just a moment of feeling like nothing's really wrong actually, or some sense like that. And even if we go back to the old way in between.
Yeah, exactly. There's this, I resonated with the previous speakers of like this, you know, this coming and going of it, because there seems like it's like, you know, such challenges on a human level, and then there's kind of like these moments of deepening understanding, and and then I'm like, oh, I can take on anything, and then something else will come, and I'm totally identified. So.
That's the awakened state right there. You know, I can be completely in the recognition that I'm bulletproof, I'm vulnerable, that there's really nothing happening anyway, everything is emptiness. In the very next moment, I'm really kind of struggling with this emotion, and there's a lot of it, and it really seems like something's wrong, and you know, it seems very, very different to what I was just experiencing. And the self, the awakened state, would just be completely, okay, this is what's happening now. This is what's happening now. Let me be with this whatever this emotion is. And I might prefer to be back in that bulletproof place, but I'm not going to say that this is happening, what is happening right now should not be.
Yeah.
It's just a deep embracing. It's really what love is, isn't it? I'm going to deeply embrace everything it means to be me. When I show up as a separate being, and all that entails, all the roles that I play as a human being. And when I show up as formlessness, whichever one I seem to feel like more in this moment is just what I feel like.
Yeah.
So I might be deeply involved in doing something with my daughter and in sorting out some issue. And there's no sense that that's less of an experience than talking like this, or just being deeply immersed in the emptiness and, you know, having lost all awareness of time and space, just being in bliss with my eyes closed. There's no preference for those anymore, because the feeling is the same underneath whatever's going on, you know, because I'm not pushing against anything. You can get a little taste of that every now and again as it starts to sort of burst through into the waking state.
Yeah, and it's just been seamless, like your support on the course, the retreat, and you know, that support of being in silence without doing the dissolving, because my practice before was very heavy on the alchemy and the dissolving, and it's kind of
letting that happen, isn't it? It's going to happen anyway in the silence. Silence is love. There's really there's some part of your being that's intensely besotted with everything that you could experience, even the parts that we would not like as a human being, especially those parts. Let me just hold this, kind of hold this a little deeper, and that's what begins to happen by itself, isn't it? That there's still that initial knee-jerk, I don't want this, that comes up, you know, and that's fine, of course, that doesn't have to go.
Yeah, I feel like even voicing that, you know, there's been moments where I've just voiced it, you know, I don't want this, and that kind of energy just releases. And I think it is just like there is just a real beauty in that stillness and letting everything be, and that from that place it just seems to be permeating more of everyday life, just being able to
the highs and lows of being a human being as well just kind of get enveloped in it, don't they?
yeah, there's just there's no, as you said, there's no difference between the two. Like, it can be forgotten when there's identification happening, but it's at the end of the day,
it doesn't matter, does
point.
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I got lost in my thoughts for 6 hours. So what? I'm out of it again. You know, it only means something if I say it did or does.
Yeah,
You know?
and anything else is mind, like anything.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what does the emptiness think about it? You know.
Beautiful, Helen. I'm just so grateful. So grateful.
It's wonderful to hear that you're feeling a little better as well. That's good.
Yeah, it's balancing out for sure, and I'm feeling a bit stronger. There's still more challenges ahead, but it's yeah, it's just I'm using it as fuel for my practice.
Yep. It goes to build the bonfire inside, right? Yeah.
Yeah, ninja warrior time, I call it.
Yeah,
those moments where you're like honing your skills, honing your, you know.
Very true. Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Well, good to hear from you.
Thank you, Helen. Much love. Thank you.
Okay, so we will leave it there for tonight. Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.